When your demographics are so bad that you got to go to war to try to get more people or just give up being a country, they got a name for you. They call you Russia. Let's talk about why it's getting so bad right now, how that's making things that were already bad worse, and why it's only going to get worse from here.
Over the past 3 years, the country has lost around 2 million more people than it would ordinarily have done as a result of war, disease, and exodus. The life expectancy of Russian males aged 15 fell by almost 5 years to the same level as in Haiti. The number of Russians born in April 2022 was no higher than it had been in the months of Hitler's occupation.
Russia hit its population peak about 30 years ago in 1994. Some of you guys might know about the Cold War and the Soviet Union. We'll get into that in another video. But right now what you need to know is about 2021, Russia had about 145 million people. In the next 50 years, it's predicted that Russia is going to have a population of 120 million. Now, that's going to be a decrease. That's going to see them go from the sixth most populous country in the world to the 15th most populous country in the world, even though they have the country with the largest land mass. Now, I don't think in 50 years they're going to have the largest land mass. We'll also get into that in another video on why this demographics is actually really important. But let's go on to talk about why the population is so bad right now outside of just the war. Russia has a horrible birth rate. So right now Russia has about 1.5 children for every woman that they have. To have a population replacency rate, which is enough people that your population keeps growing and thriving and being able to take care of the population that's going to retire, they need a birth rate about 2.1. So what's happening is Russia's older population is aging out and the younger generation is not there to replace them. Those births have already happened. You can't go back 20 years and then just have more kids. The only way you can get more people is to have immigration. But again, Russia is having an issue because people want to leave Russia and not come to it. Who'd want to come to it when their economy is getting even worse? They have a war going on, and anybody who could join the Russian population is a candidate for going to the war. Let's see how it's going to get even worse from here.
The roots of Russia's crisis go back 30 years. The country reached peak population in 1994 with 149 million people. The total has since zigzagged downwards. It was 145 million in 2021. That figure, from the UN, excludes the 2.4 million people of Crimea, which Russia seized in 2014 and incorporated into its national accounts.
It's important to know that those things we talked about aren't going to get better. They're going to keep getting worse. But there's three other things that's going to compound that. Oil, internal wars, and China. I can't do it like Trump does. He does it beautifully. Gotta hate that man. Love that man.
All this began before the war and reflects Russia's appalling COVID pandemic. Russia may have had the largest COVID death toll in the world after India, and the highest mortality rate of all, with 851 through 100 deaths per 100,000 people.
What you gotta realize is that those problems we talked about are just gonna get worse. But there's more things on the table. You talk about oil, internal wars, and China. Can't say it like he does it. Oil is going to be going out of fashion pretty soon. Countries like Saudi Arabia are already trying to figure out ways to get around that because the future is green. That's just what's going to happen. It's a good thing for countries that can make it work, like the United States and the UK, most of Europe. Those countries are going to thrive because they're not going to be dependent on anyone else. So if you want to be dependent on your own country instead of someone else's, why are you against green? But that means that countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia, who don't really make anything but just sell massive amounts of oil, they're going to be kind of screwed. Russia has at least farming to go back on. However, countries are cutting ties with them. You got third world countries that are always going to be there, but the poorer Russia gets, the harder it is for them to feed their own people, let alone someone else's. Think about internal wars. You're talking about people like Chechnyas and Dagestanis. Those they're kind of like countries. They're basically used to be countries almost. Those people don't want to be owned by Russia. But right now, Russia's strong enough that they can hold them with their thumb. That's not always going to be the case. Russia's army is being destroyed. The Chechen army is already looking at Russia just waiting for an opportunity. They've already attacked the Russians on their own battlefield while they're supposed to be protecting them. In fact, they love the fact that they get to sit behind the Russian lines and shoot at Russians that try to run away from the Ukrainians. And the biggest thing is the Chinese. If Russia does not do well in this war and China does not attack Taiwan because they see that it's probably not going to work out well for them, they're already making moves against Russia. Yeah, if you look at their maps, most people talk about the maps of the China Sea down there. But that's not the worst thing in the world for Russia. Other countries have to worry about that, but Russia has to worry about the fact that some of their land is being claimed by China. And China is very aggressive with this. And they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have a reason. They have a backup plan. And that backup plan is no more Russia. Because why do they need somebody who's that powerful in that region who's competing with them against other countries to try to gain favor if they can get that country out the way? Russia and China only work together if Russia's strong. The weaker Russia gets and the stronger China gets, the worse it's going to be for Russia. The question is, who's going to fall to the bottom first? Russia looks like it's rushing to the bottom. China might not be too far behind them.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on this topic below.